Prince Harry, he's fallen very, very badly over in the United States. So badly, in fact, that he's polling, well, the worst ever. But as always with Harry, it's not necessarily his fault, or the fault, of course, of his wife Meghan Markle, the former cable TV actress. But what I'm about to reveal tells you just everything about Prince Harry's mindset and exactly where he feels he should be, and more importantly, where he genuinely is right now. As ever, let me explain. Hi, morning chums. Well, look, it's happened. I know. Yes, you know, don't you? This is one of my favourite spots. Sadly, this is now what we're going to be getting until March, probably. I know, I'm depressed, aren't you? We love flowers on this channel. I get a lot of people, and not lots actually, one or two, I've got to be honest, basically saying, oh, the flowers are distracting, why do you have something going on at the side when you're speaking, I go from what you're my friends on this channel, what you like, and you tell me you like the flowers, you like the waves and all of that sort of stuff, and I don't take any notice, but I do ask because I'm doing what I think is the thing that we all enjoy. In the depths of winter, miserable days like today, what you want is to be reminded of summer. Yes, you feel a bit warmer, don't you? No, I took a film, didn't I, recently, of a fire in a pub, and I thought, wow, even though you can't afford to put the heating on, you can look at flames, can't you, and just trick yourself into thinking it. It's a little bit like this particular story that I wanted to share with you today, all about Prince Harry tricking himself into believing that, as ever, it's not his fault why he's become so unpopular, particularly over in the United States. Think about it, 2 months ago, right, he came back over here to the United Kingdom and gave away over $1 million, allegedly, pledged $1 million, right? But, again, this is going to be interesting how this works out. And it's all about, with the Archwell Foundation, about all the good work, showing up, being seen, doing good, all of that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, flying halfway around the world with your climate footprint or whatever, trampling over everything, but that's all right because you're sending a message. It's a bit like Keir Starmer going to COP26 or whatever. Just useless people doing this, dictating to you. But where it gets interesting for me, and as you can understand this, and this is a problem really, the true problem that Harry has, if he was able to step back from all of those therapists and everybody that he spent thousands of pounds on, is sheer jealousy of his elder brother. And there's nothing that can be done with that, simply because it's not Princess Diana's fault, it's not his father's fault. The bottom line is, it's when he was born and in the line of succession. He should be thrilled that he's still on the royal website. He's able to trade very happily on that, the titles, the picture, and one of the most visited websites in the world. Here's where it gets interesting though, as I say, when he came back to the United Kingdom, September time, if you remember, for the Well Child Awards and something else, I can't quite remember now what he was doing, something in Nottingham, right? The thing is, he very much was playing what we call the old role of the royal. So he was meeting and greeting people, hoping for big crowds, pictures, selfies, hug factors, all of that sort of stuff, right? And it didn't necessarily work, and it certainly didn't come over. But behind the scenes, this was really to try and instigate some kind of form back to his father, His Majesty the King. You see, what had really upset Harry earlier on in that particular period was when President Trump nicely, I thought, got up at his own second official state visit out at Windsor Castle. And if you remember, I thought it went incredibly well. I loved the interaction with Melania and Catherine, and you could see they got on. A bit of an age difference between them, but still mothers at heart. That's the thing. They just bonded, didn't they? What was interesting here, though, was, as you remember, when President Trump took to the podium and got up, he congratulated His Majesty the King on having a fine son in His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, Prince William. And this wasn't the first time that President Trump had actually stated that. He said that when they met a bit over a year since over in Paris for the opening of the Louvre and all that sort of stuff. And what was interesting about that was Harry was seething. And this was reported back from an excellent source, simply because he felt His Majesty the King should have got up and said, just to remind you, I have two sons, and this would have been on the world stage. You get the picture. Because he didn't, and this is an official banquet and it's not there for family squabbles and pictures or whatever, Harry was upset, and apparently continued to be that upset by the time he came back over here for that particular visit, right? Now again, here's where the twist is. When he did all of that wandering around and walkabout and stuff like that, well, consequently, he thought he was going to get some feedback and tried to solicit that feedback from His Majesty the King by contacting the palace saying, what do you think? I think it went very well. It'd be great if my father, etc. Again, I have to say allegedly, but this is from an excellent source. Harry, as you know, sees Queen Camilla as the blocker. He's already called her dangerous, already said that she's difficult and just wants her own good press. And according to that source that I'm dealing with, basically Harry sees her as the blocker between himself and the king be getting a better relationship. He's also blamed the media, saying, that the media are to blame because if the media were nicer, then maybe the king wouldn't, King Charles. He's not looking at the media. He's looking at exactly what you've done and what you've said about the Queen Camilla, and his wife. So, it's your own fault. But behind the scenes, according to that source, that's the reason why Harry then decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go off and do X. And that's truly the reason that's now exploded behind the scenes, because as I told you over a couple of videos ago, that the palace had no idea when Prince Harry decided once again to avail himself to Canada, even though nobody had officially agreed it from the palace. And yet time and time again, Harry keeps pointing out to you that all he really wants is to reconcile with his family, and his father, King Charles, doesn't know how much time he's got. So consequently, double-edged sword, nasty, but on the other hand, never Harry's fault. And this, as I say, is from an excellent source. What the palace are waiting to see now is exactly how Harry reacts once again to whatever's coming next. And he's never really going to give in, because clearly he's a spoilt child. Everybody knew that. The palace hid it well. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.